All right, welcome to Bold Strong. This is Craig Nadeau, and today I have with me Charles Finstad, one of my oldest living friends. Welcome to the show.
Still alive, Craig. Still alive.
So I'm so glad you could be here. Charles Finstad and I have known each other for since we were teenagers. We competed in track and field together. We trained together. We went up through high school, university age together, competing and training, and then. And now, every once in a while, we bump into each other.
Yeah,
it's like every few years we reconnect. Charles is at Frequency Foundry and is the, as you said, newly minted Chief Revenue Officer.
Yeah.
And and so maybe give us a quick bio on that, and we'd like to hear a little bit about Jazz YYC. But maybe first, let's just quickly let people know that if anyone can be a witness or prove that I was even in track and field, it would be you. And we both were in it together. We both competed in most of the running and jumping, throwing events. And then we ultimately got into decathlon once we got into university, really.
Yep.
You went a little bit longer than I did, a couple years. And then I got out and started doing bench press more.
Yeah,
and that was just my world. So
yeah, well, that's not a bad world though.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I got into it basically because you need a sport, right?
Oh, I thought you got into it because I was in it.
Oh yeah, I always forget. So I never had a lot of fantastic dreams, and kind of a middling decathlete in the Canadian decathlon scene, which is oddly strong. I mean,
it is. It's impressive, actually.
It's kind of ridiculous, actually. So, and we have more guys coming up.
Yeah.
Not just Damien Warner, but like Pierce Lepage, guys like that. We just seem to find these guys.
Just as a crazy aside, did you see the two of them standing together during the event? The one guy's like he's like 7 inches taller. It was shocking how tall he is.
Yeah. Well, I was never really tall enough to be a decathlete, but I like to pretend. But
I think Pierce is only 6 feet tall. I think he's 6 or 6'1".
Is he?
Yeah,
Oh.
he's not very tall.
Well, there's hope for me, except I'm 55.
In the Masters events, we'll both be in Masters.
I don't have any working knees, so aside from that, I'm totally fine.
Yeah. So we both got out of it at some point, and then started working, and now we bump into each other every once in a while.
Yeah, every once in a while. I think we have pizza at Posto, or one of these places that are still here in Calgary, and it's good fun.
Yeah, one day we'll go back to Edmonton. We'll go to the Butter Dome, which is still there, and we'll go for a run around the track.
Hey, you want a fun Butter Dome fact?
Yeah, totally.
Only place I ever ran under 2 minutes for an 800 meters.
Indoors.
Was indoors at the Butter Dome.
Come on.
And as you probably know, I was a sprinter. So 800 meters was not really in my wheelhouse.
That's the stretch.
And I pretty much think that that experience, I actually hallucinated for several days because of the pain of running under 2 minutes. So yeah.
That's impressive, though, and that's a great facility. So
it is a great
that's
facility.
the place to do it, if anywhere.
Although I do blame some of my knee and ankle problems on the Butter Dome. Very fast surface.
Yeah, fast and hard. Yeah.
Very hard on you.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
Pretty great. So now you're Frequency Foundry.
Now I'm Frequency Foundry.
Yeah. So tell us about that. Curious about what you do there. Probably a lot of people have never heard of it.
Well, you probably have heard of it. Foundry was 2009 by the now CEO Shaker Kadaba. Shaker sort of created the firm with the idea of doing CRM systems for higher education and for the public sector. Now, by virtue of that, the market that he's got to address is pretty wide. So we don't have a ton of local customers. We actually do have a local customer here. Bow Valley College is one of our customers, and Athabasca University up north of Edmonton, also one of ours. But the vast majority of our higher education customers, anyway, are not in Alberta. building out the U.S. market. But I joined Shaker there about 4 years ago. He recruited me away from a very large firm with hundreds of thousands of employees that just stopped being super exciting for me. I got to go back to my roots as more of an entrepreneur, help him grow this business. I think we're making some good progress here. Certainly we're looking at some of the firms that have kind of hit that unicorn status here locally, and we might not have aspirations that are that big, but I think we've got a really nice path ahead of us over the course of the next couple of years.
It's pretty exciting when this stuff pops up in Calgary, and then so many people don't know about it, which is crazy, really, because these are great stories. You just never hear about them.
Yeah, there's another firm here locally that just received something like $500 million of new financing to grow, to sort of take to the next level. Also another education firm. So,
wow.
It's amazing that these firms sort of grow up and exist here without a lot of people really having a lot of awareness.
Yeah. Well, I think we have a pretty good incubator environment, don't we?
I think we do. We have a tradition of being able to sort of foster and grow these businesses, and I think a lot of the talent that goes into that is coming out right now of the formerly highly employed engineering and technology workforce that that used to occupy all these now somewhat empty buildings that we're surrounded by. So, the talent is here. There's definitely that kind of drive and initiative in the city, and I think this happens more than people more than people understand.
It's I've had this conversation more than once where we talk about how do we transition the technologist who historically has been in oil and gas, and then you take you have a specialty in the data related to downhole tools and monitoring, and then you're going to apply that to some sort of gaming theory, and there has to be crossover, but it's not an easy, and I think it maybe gets glossed over a bit where we're just going to you'll just go over here now, and that doesn't really happen.
Well, it doesn't really happen,
but there's crossover.
There's crossover, and the patterns are the same, right? I think that somebody that understands the mechanics of how big data works in a downhole situation, or if you're doing 3D stuff and that sort of thing, you have a great head start on being able to tackle all kinds of data science issues that are happening outside the energy industry. Not that the energy industry needs to, I have my hopes for it.
Yeah.
It's obviously going to change, but I think a lot of those folks really, they need to understand that maybe that next position or that next industry doesn't pay what we're used to getting paid in energy. But there's headroom. There's room to grow in a lot of these industries, and if we can create an incubator style economy here, if we can create that new technology hub, I think that the rest of it comes along. Somebody can take a look at an economy like Ottawa or San Francisco and understand exactly what the impact of a technology economy can have in a city. It's fantastic.
Right. It's you caused me to recall our good friend Nortel.
Oh.
Probably not the ideal picture of a booming technology play. But what's interesting about Nortel is that I think when Nortel emptied out of their building, we all thought, it's like, that's it. Like, what are we going to do next? Like, and a vast number of people wouldn't remember Nortel now.
Well,
and it just is a past.
You're dating yourself, man.
I know.
Yeah. I mean, you could tell exactly the same story about BlackBerry. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, not nearly as tragic, and it isn't ended.
Yeah.
As a full disclosure, as a BlackBerry shareholder. Yeah. That business was forced to adapt,
right?
Pretty dramatically,
right?
So, there isn't a super easy path or anything along those lines, but there's definitely some possibility of growing some of those kind of firms in this country. Yeah, and I look down the street to a firm like Benevity, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Again, like, completely dissociated from the industries that I'm used to. But who would have known that somebody would ante up $1 billion for a firm like Benevity? Like that, to me, that's phenomenal. And I think it just means that we need to keep our options open. We need to understand that there's opportunities outside of our traditional economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Benevity's a great story. I'm going to dig into that more because that's. I think everyone drives past it and has no clue. It's just this big, beautiful building on the other side of the river when you go over the whatever that is, the Fourth Avenue flyover. Yeah, it's fascinating. I have a couple people I've networked with that are working there, and it's fascinating. And there's a lot of people working there.
There are
shocking.
There are hundreds of your friends and neighbors that work for that firm, and it's a great firm.
Yeah, and it's when you start to see Calgary in this light where we have these other businesses coming in and absorbing the people that were working at the engineering firms and the oil and gas companies. It's there's a transition in play, and we don't really see it so much.
Yeah, and there's a transition for the people that are involved in those industries too.
Yeah,
I think kind of my point is that there's going to be a certain amount of patience that's required.
Yeah.
Right. As we try and repopulate the city and and revive the economy here, but I have no lack of faith in that.
Yeah.
I live here on purpose.
Yeah, that's right. I was talking to Grace Yan, who's running for mayor right now, and I forget what she said, but she identified the Calgary Herald building as for like using it for like maybe an Amazon warehouse type of environment because that building is massive.
Of course. Well, I mean, you used to have all that, like printing and distribution and all those things that again, guys our age remember. No.
I kept a couple newspapers to show the kids. They don't believe it.
Yeah, very good. It's like, no, seriously. Like, I used to have a job where I would deliver these to your door every day.
Did you deliver newspapers? Come on, are you serious?
You didn't deliver
Did I know
newspapers?
That? Of course I did.
Yeah, why is that even a question?
Did you? Were you Edmonton Journal? Or were you
I was an Edmonton Journal guy. I mean, I wouldn't have been delivering the Sun. Come on.
No, of course they're too small. That's how we got big.
That's where my 10-meter shot put came. From getting huge.
That's right.
From delivering newspapers. Obviously, I should have delivered more newspapers. So,
all my brothers, we all delivered papers in our area for years and years. So
very good.
That's crazy, hey?
Yeah, it is.
We keep doing this.
Yeah, eventually we'll figure out
we're gonna be. You're my brother.
It'll be fine.
Oh man.
Well, technically, if you're 54, it's possible.
It's possible.
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow. So and what's interesting is Frequency Foundry too is it kind of grew up in an era like. I guess I'm kind of curious why it got started because it kind of grew up in a time frame when there were other businesses really looking at education and how education was going to be distributed, and it was really an era where a lot of universities were going online because before you had distance education, which was very different than online education. Right, because distance was you just had to go somewhere, or somewhere came to you, and there was stuff that was in the mail. Yeah. But online education really blew up, 05 and on, and
so it kind of is an interesting story, and I don't think it happened accidentally, but more sort of an opportunity that Shaker saw when he started. He kind of came out of he came out of the East Coast. I think he's a Dal grad, and at that point in time, there was a ton of call centers sort of spinning up in the Maritimes, and he got involved. He's an engineer and a super smart guy. And I'm not just saying that because he's the CEO. He's a super smart guy. He's got a great vision, and he started working in and managing call centers, setting up call centers in the Maritimes. When he came out here, he sort of took that experience, and one of his first gigs was actually to do that for Athabasca University, the original online university.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as you can imagine, given their business model, there's a lot of demand if you're not in person all the time, there's a lot of demand on something like a call center in that era for an institution like Athabasca. So Shaker started working on the on the call center side and developed a whole bunch of schools. Wilfrid Laurier, a couple in the States.
Really?
All these schools that he did call center work for. There was a point at which he sort of thinks about this as like, well, the call center is collecting all this information, right? It is the end point that the constituent, the student or the prospect or the grad or we call them constituents. It's the end point that the constituent touches, and he started sort of thinking this through, and it's like, well, where does all that data really live? So he started thinking about CRM in the context of higher education and tying those call centers to CRM. And eventually, the call center side, and we still do it. We still do a little of that telephony integration and that sort of stuff. But the meat and potatoes of what we do and where the value really is starting to aggregate the data that comes through not just telephony, but through email and text messages and social media and web portals and all the other channels that you can communicate with today.
Right. And
aggregating that data into a CRM system, which we call it constituent relationship management. And then starting to think about that, that evolves towards being able to solve the business problems that these institutions are facing, right? Like, how do I recruit better? How do I maximize the admissions that I get? How do I retain students better? How do I develop alumni and into donors, right? And start to do donor management. And at the center of all these things is a CRM system. It's really engagement management. So the story of the firm, I think it actually developed kind of naturally. And it just sort of took a little bit of vision to understand that, you're going to turn something you used to do into one of the channels that leads to where the value really is, and then starting to take that and turn it into a tool that helps you solve the business processes or the business problems that you're facing. So, today, if you think about the situation 12 or 13 months ago for most universities and colleges in North America, actually around the world, no one showed up.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody deferred. I've got a complete lack of bums in seats for this year. I'm creating a massive, massive problem for myself downstream, because universities and colleges are designed to have a certain amount of attrition from year to year, and the schools are scaled and arranged and designed around a certain set of assumptions around enrollment and retention. And of course, you always want to retain more, and you want to enroll better, and you want to recruit better. But the model kind of got thrown out the window, and all of a sudden we're sitting there, and we're the keepers of. We're technically not the keepers. The universities and colleges own all the data, but our system is the keeper of all of that engagement information, and really gives schools a huge advantage in terms of how to restart those relationships, right? How to maintain and maximize engagement with your constituent population. So, it's a super interesting thing seeing the technology really develop into a business problem solving mechanism, which is really the whole point behind Foundry.
Yeah, I was you tweaked me. I was driving with my son a while back, and we drove past Mount Royal. Yeah, and he goes, "That's where I go to university, although I've never been there." So 1 year in, he's never even been to the school yet. I don't think he actually other than to play basketball, but I don't think he ever set foot in the school.
I have a niece who is in her second year at MRU, and I think she's doing this. She's
is that right?
Doing a marketing communication sort of thing.
Wow.
With a focus on broadcasting. And I'm assuming at some point in time she's going to have to go in and learn how to operate gear and
you got to touch the equipment
like this. But for the most part, I don't think she's been there yet. And it's a couple minutes from her house.
Isn't that amazing?
It is really amazing.
And it makes you think about, you even go back, we mentioned the Calgary Herald, where they have, I don't know what that building and all the equipment inside must have been valued at, but it's got to be millions and millions and millions and millions. It's a fortune, and now it's just completely not needed at all.
Yeah, who's
shocking?
Who is using those massive, hyper expensive German presses that I'm sure that everybody was so pleased to have owned, right?
Yeah, and proud of. These are the pinnacle of technology. That's right here.
and now they're worth a certain number of dollars per pound.
Per pound. If you can weld, you can torch them out of the space that they've been dropped
you'd have to
into,
disassemble the building to take them out.
Yeah.
So,
It is pretty amazing. Like all of education's really evolved, and it's and I think Calgary's changed because of it too. Like Calgary's got, like if you actually stopped and wrote down the educational facilities that we have in Calgary, it's actually quite a large number.
There is. I mean, I sort of live in that world, so I am aware of exactly how many of them there are. Right?
Like what's the number roughly? Just within two.
Well, I mean, there's eight of what we would call majors, but there's another dozen sort of small universities and colleges spread around the province, spread around the city actually, that you wouldn't normally think of when you're thinking about post-secondary education, and that is one of the big challenges that the big schools, and no offense to the smaller schools. Our customers are the bigger schools, sort of 5,000 and up kind of schools. The challenge for the big schools is to maintain relevance. Right. My 4-year degree really doesn't play well with what the market is asking for right now, or my particular interests. And these schools are challenged to try and figure out what they can do to offer more in terms of continuing education, what they can do outside of traditional degree programs, and that's really pushing the evolution of universities and colleges. So, that will filter, not just up to the MRUs and the Grant MacEwens, right, but the NAITs and SAITs and the U of Cs and the U of As. I mean, schools that have relatively high standards in terms of selection are still feeling that pressure because their target audience is not as interested in them. So
yeah, that's right.
They gotta remake their relevance.
I heard there was I'm not making the survey up. There was some survey looking at the top 100 cities in the world to live in, and Calgary came in dead middle, which is, I guess, better than being at the bottom.
Right.
So, but one of the, I believe one of the items that they brought up in there was that we had an incredibly high number of people with bachelor's degrees as a population, which is quite interesting.
Well, I mean, I think we are traditionally one of the most educated, cities, certainly in Canada, and I'm sure Toronto would hate to hear that. In the late '90s and in '06, I love saying that, just past the turn of the century, Calgary was the destination for educated people, right? Yeah. So if you were an engineer, if you had any sort of technical skills, if you had that sort of first degree, there was a ton of opportunity in this economy, and I think that legacy has sort of stayed with us. Yeah. And there's no big secret. Educated parents typically make educated children. Right. So, so I think there's some momentum there still, but we're going to have to try and figure out how to maintain people's interest in this economy.
Yeah, well, and that kind of leads us into the next interesting thought, and it's that Calgary is a pretty great place, and you and I have lived here a long time, and we enjoy it. Yep. And there's probably nice warm places we can go occasionally.
There are places,
but it's a good place.
February.
Yeah. But one of the big challenges for Calgary is it has to be relevant. It's got to be a place where people want to be. It's got to have infrastructure and systems and things that people want. And that's what's come up in the new City Calgary discussion. Even provincial politics, and it's all a big question. Now you're part of Jazz YYC, which kind of plays well into this, creating some form of legacy for Calgary, some form of interest for Calgary.
Yeah, having lived here and sort of thrived and made a pretty healthy career, you always want to start to get engaged back in your city, and that was something I hadn't really done. So actually, coming up on about 2 years ago, I started. There was a call that went out for directors, and I joined the board at Jazz YYC. It's super interesting. I mean, I'm a mediocre but enthusiastic musician. I love music of all types and sorts. I do have a pretty strong interest in jazz. So I sort of parlayed that and then looked at that organization and started talking to them and really some of the things that they were challenged with, some of the challenges they were faced with on a day-to-day basis, looked somewhat like some of the things I was doing professionally, right, in terms of trying to engage, sponsors and members and create template communications and all the great stuff that you need to thrive as a not-for-profit organization. Now, Jazz YYC, it has a pretty interesting legacy in the city. There's been some starts and stops, and there's been some failures, but there's a great group of people right now that are sort of driving that organization forward, and we're starting to modernize a little bit. We're doing some software implementations. I wonder who's leading those.
Yeah.
There's some activity there that really is all about trying to sustain the sort of the arts and culture community, albeit a narrow piece of that arts and culture community, to make sure that when we come out of this COVID situation, that we've got a city. Right, we've got a city that's worth living in, a city that's interesting, a city that has a compelling draw, and certainly I would love to see Calgary become the next mecca for jazz music. That's probably a really big stretch, but I think we're kind of obligated to make sure that we do get out there, we do support those local venues, those local businesses, the local musicians that don't necessarily have a strong income right now because of their inability to do live shows. So we're hosting festivals. We're doing what we can in and around COVID restrictions. We're doing that safely and responsibly, and we're trying to do what we can to make sure that the infrastructure is still here. In a few months, hopefully, when this all passes.
Yeah, one of the buildings I've never walked into is the Bell Center. What's in there? Like, people, like, if you've never been in there, you don't know what's in there. What's in there?
Amazing collections of things. Right?
Well, then I must go see it.
I think there's I think a country music hall of fame or something along those lines. And if you go into the lobby, there's a piano that was played by Elton John.
No way.
Wow. There's all kinds of amazing collections in there, and definitely worth checking out.
Is there recording studio space in there?
There is. I believe there's some places where you can do performance and you can do some recordings. Yeah. It's all, of course, it's attached across that magic sort of causeway to the King Eddie as well, right. Which we're doomed if the King Eddie goes away. So please.
But it's like they've dressed up. The King Eddie's been totally refurbed.
Oh, it's a beautiful venue. Absolutely beautiful venue.
Yeah, that's awesome. Like, I guess one of the things that brings musicians to Calgary is recording space too, and so I know that there's always a push to add recording space, and and of course that would be for video and for audio recording. So
and I mean the video side, the video production, movie production side of things here is a lot stronger than people believe.
Oh, absolutely. So, it's actually like. I hate to say it's booming, but I know some stuff behind the scenes.
By lightning now, man.
Yeah. But I know some stuff behind the scenes, and I know how much money's been being dropped into stage space. It's it's unbelievable, actually.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And it's going to be great when some of those things start hitting Calgary. And of course, for the musician group, then once we have a new place to play, possibly, that would be nice, and other venues. But I think the Grey Eagles really picked up on a lot of the...
I think it has, and, I have to admit that I was initially kind of suspicious of the whole idea. I went and saw a few shows there. I saw a Christmas show there a couple years ago. I saw Brian Setzer.
Okay. Wow.
From the Stray Cats. And as a result, for my 50th birthday, which was a long time ago, my wife bought me a beautiful Brian Setzer Gretsch guitar. So
no way.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
Had to add it to the collection. So
yeah. That's amazing. Well, that'll be great. I'm excited that Calgary's adding these places, and
absolutely,
it's making Calgary kind of a cool place to.
Yeah, and I think there's really a couple mindsets, right? I think there's a lot of there's a lot of talk around why would we spend money on this? Right? Why would we spend money on arts or culture and that sort of thing? And I understand that there's always going to be there's always going to be needs, right? There's always going to be a different place we could have spent that dollar. There's a different person that could have got benefit from it. But I think at the end of the day, if we make blanket statements that say something like, we can no longer support the arts and culture, or we can no longer support investments in infrastructure, we end up in a city that that isn't going to be that much fun to live in.
No. Yeah.
And historically, I moved here 1998. Man, that's a long time ago. So I moved here.
I beat you.
Did you?
A couple of years, yeah.
All right, okay. So I moved here in 98, and I was a little bit taken aback when I moved here, because I moved here from the cultural mecca of Edmonton.
Come on, we had the Fringe Festival.
Which was far more interesting in
was.
1998 than Calgary was. My wife is from Winnipeg, and when she came here, also in 1998, thankfully, one of the first things she noticed was, we don't have any place to go and eat. We don't have, the music scene here was was iffy at best, and that sort of thing. And we've sort of watched Calgary grow up over the course of the last 22 years, and it's become like a really interesting and viable place. It's again, not a cultural mecca, but this is a far richer city for the investments that have been made in arts and culture over the course of the last couple of decades than it was in the late 90s. And I would hate to see that legacy fade.
Yeah, I get fired up when we compare Edmonton. Not because I have a favorite, but I look at Edmonton and what's happened in the Ice District, and I think, maybe you would agree, that I think Edmonton has paid a lot of attention to culture and arts and stuff. And the Fringe Festival for me, was always this amazing, I can't even believe this exists type event. And Calgary had the Stampede, but it didn't really have as much as Edmonton had. Right. Edmonton had Heritage Days, which was a massive event, and now Edmonton has the Ice District, which, if you've seen it, is
beautiful.
It's nuts. They've done such a great thing. But I rail sometimes, because I think, how come Calgary doesn't have this? The one advantage we today have is now we can look at it and say, what mistake did they make that we can fix and do better, if we do it.
And to be completely clear, I am a huge proponent of putting the new facility in, and I think that's something that I would have stood on a street corner and bashed a drum to make sure that people paid attention. I think it's absolutely essential for revitalizing that piece of the city. I was actually a little bit disappointed that the option wasn't taken to do that development on the west side of downtown, right? And I understand that there's all sorts of environmental considerations that had to be mitigated. Apparently, we have hundreds of years worth of.
It's a terrible excuse.
We have like a creosote.
There's a creosote issue
there.
Seriously, it's about time we dig it up and deal with it.
So, at what point in time is it going to be cheaper to do that? So, are we permanently deciding that is a spot that sits beside one of the most beautiful rivers that runs through a city in the world, and we're just going to abandon it because we don't have the balls to dig that up and actually do something about it? I think that would have been a fantastic site for the for the space, and I really did like the combined. I think at one point in time they're talking about field house. Field house, hockey, football, all sort of in the same area. I think that would have been. I think that would have been
amazing,
right? Yeah. I mean, it will be great where it is, right?
Yeah.
And there's some benefits that are going to be reaped by the neighborhood immediately around that, which is going to be great. I think it could have been a little bit better. I think we could have exercised a bit more vision there, but
there is. I haven't seen the plans, but I know from talking to a few people that there is a pretty big. We have the East District, and then there is a West District plan, and so it takes into account the Greyhound station and almost all of that city-owned properties at this point. So
Greyhound station,
another throwback. That's where you used to sit and read the newspaper on your way to
On the way to planting trees in northern Ontario, yeah.
That's right.
Oh, those were the days. No, they weren't.
Yeah. Yeah, that building will probably come down. It's just a matter of time. So.
I think that building could double as a bomb shelter. I dare them to try and take it down.
Here's a odd piece of trivia. Probably you don't know.
Right,
Maybe you do.
Bring it.
That of course that building's been repurposed now during COVID because it's just a big building, and you can manage lots and lots of people to go through there on a drive-through basis even, which is kind of cool. But the police have been using that to train the tactical units on going into rooms and clearing buildings and stuff over time, because it was an empty building, and that's kind of the ideal situation. So.
Okay, well, you got me, because that bit of trivia, that's completely new to me.
Yeah, it's a neat big old building. So it's but you tear down that building, it's going to have environmental cleanup to do too, because buses leak and.
Of course.
So.
I mean, I think that will pale in comparison to the episode issue. But, I mean, and frankly, and obviously, some of that land is owned by the city. Some of that land is still owned privately.
Yeah.
But we have a collection of car dealerships and abandoned buildings right on the edge of some of the most valuable real estate in the province. Right.
Yeah. So. It's what's the theater that's down there in that corner
under the bridge. I should know this because I've seen some of my nieces and nephews perform down there.
That's a great little facility.
The Calgary Young People's Theater is down there. There's a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a neat that building down there is really neat though.
Yeah.
So it's and once they clean up the area, that just becomes part of the bigger picture, which will be really cool. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So what do you see for Jazz YYC? What's cool coming up that we can get people pumped on?
We've got a festival coming up in November. We're going to bring some acts in. I don't have the lineup at my.
Okay. Where is that going to be? Like where's?
I think it's so typically we hit up some of the traditional spots. So we'll have some events at Ironwood. We'll have some events at King Eddie, and we'll spread them around through other events around the other venues around the city. So. Yeah,
that'll be great. Was there ever anything that played at Mikey's that was down on 10th Ave?
Oh, well, not jazz, but that's the other side of that wonderful musical equation, which is just fine too.
Yeah, that building's gone.
That building is gone.
Yeah. One less interesting, bizarre place to
that
play
was
music.
Actually kind of a bizarre place, but it was a good place to sort of walk up to or ride up to on a weekend and have a few beers and get a little deafer than I already am.
Yeah.
So.
I think the Calgary's done a pretty good job with using Shaw Millennium Park for as a venue.
Yeah.
They've gotten good at it.
Yeah, I mean, anything from from Sled Island to all sorts of festivals that young people go to that do things that I don't understand. But that's fine. There's more and more that I don't understand these days, Craig.
I did see a picture on the interweb. Was it yesterday from that festival they held on Sunday? Right. It was like, there wasn't a lot of social distancing going on.
Well, we don't have a problem, do we? Oh yeah, we kind of do.
Yeah. But I think they were vax checking everyone there too. So who knows?
Right. Well, we're not supposed to mention that that vax checking, with the editable PDF that the government sent us. I don't know.
Yeah.
Could have been smoother. Could have been.
Well, the numbers are telling a story.
Yeah.
Believe them or not, I guess, I don't know, they're telling a story.
Well,
so
I don't know. I tend to think the numbers are the numbers.
Yeah.
Right? And there's definitely a story. And the sooner we as a population address that, the sooner we're going to get through this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's crazy.
Not meaning to start any holy wars, but
no, that's right. It's too polarizing. I was been saying to a few people, and you think back to when Nenshi probably got his biggest, and that was during the flood, really, where he was able to stand up in front and gather the masses, and everyone was coming together, and we were a big team. And now we're just like, what side are you on?
Yeah, I don't understand how. I don't understand how come together in a crisis is turned to polarize yourselves in a crisis, right? That to me that doesn't make a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always there's always room for a dissenting opinion, right? But there isn't. I don't know. I don't understand how dissenting opinion meant like outright disrespect or hostility for someone that doesn't share your opinion.
You know, it would be interesting to go back historically and and see, during the Spanish flu, did we have this level of dissent, or was it just like everyone was in panic and dying?
You got a shot. You lined up and you got a shot,
and this is it. Yeah,
that's it. Yeah. I mean, we have we live in a pretty privileged society, so that sort of thing is impossible right now.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far onto the soapbox, but like every time I go to the doctor because I cut myself open on a regular basis, I'm getting a tetanus shot that I have no idea what's in it.
I spent a lot of time like falling off bicycles at high speed. After my track career, cycling seemed to be somehow entertaining.
What was the worst?
A lot more violent.
I got to hear your worst bike accident. What was it? This should be good. I have a good one.
You got a good one?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to say I was racing Tuesday night crits.
Okay.
At the university, and I was racing with my dear friend Jason Wool. Jason, an incredibly talented athlete, and for some reason, we somehow managed to make our way up from the B group.
Okay.
After a few weeks of painful racing. This would be back in a day when I was actually fit, as opposed to today.
There's no fact checking here, so it's okay.
Oh, good. So I can say anything I want. So we got to ride with the A group, which was made up of some incredibly fast young people. Mm-hmm. And I talk about young people. This was quite a few years ago, but they were still young people. Because I was in my mid-30s, early 40s, and we managed to hang on to the A group for a long, long time. Jason for much longer than I did, and eventually, so you sort of fall out of the lead group, and you try and collect a few people, right, so that you can ride together and not just get continuously lapped by the big group. Mm-hmm. Jason eventually comes back as well, and we got probably 20 minutes left in this crit, and we started riding sort of two up. Taking our turns. Jason takes a lot longer pulls than I do, but so I get up and I'm really working because there's a couple weird corners on this course, and I'm really working on trying to get my cornering right. And I come out of this one corner on Jason's back wheel, and I just hit the corner perfectly. I absolutely rode this corner as the best possible line. I got my pedal down at the right time. And I realized that I was so happy about the fact that I'd ridden this perfect corner that I rode all the way into the back of Jason's wheel. I don't know, probably 55, maybe a few more kilometers an hour than that. Touched his back wheel with my front wheel and just gone. And landed on my elbows. Of course, the first thing you do is you look backwards to see who's going to ride over you, and because here comes the group. They were far enough away that I was able to sort of lurch back to the road, pick up my bike, and get off the road.
Did Jason go down too?
No.
Jason.
Jason felt the touch. Right? And
but he kept it going.
And he heard the screams. And he actually stopped and came back and made sure I was okay. I think the best line ever, and something that I would recommend nobody ever say to somebody is, keep your arms straight. Don't look at your elbow. Because, of course, the first thing you do is you go, whoosh, and then your elbow pops.
Yeah. That's crazy. Mine was... I've had a couple pretty good accidents, but the most memorable one, it was just riding home from work. And I used to ride all the time. And weirdly, you may be surprised, I'm kind of competitive.
No.
And it doesn't matter who's on that trail, I'm going to beat them no matter what. And so I was
the next guy.
Yeah, I was on I was on a mountain bike, so it had, straight bars. Yeah. And I was looking back, there's someone way back there, and I was cranking it as hard as I could just to stay ahead of this guy, and I kept looking back, and the chain link fence started closing in on the on the trail itself, and I'm looking back, and just as I look back, I must have just steered a little bit over, and my handlebar went into the fence. And so my bike stopped as instantly as it could and just went whoosh. And that's what it did to me. It basically, when I kind of, you have that instant, I don't even know what happened between I was sitting on the bike and I was sitting on the ground.
Yeah.
And I was like literally sitting on the ground in front of my bike. My face had hit the chain link fence, and my ear had gone into the chain link fence and pulled the top of my ear off.
Jeez.
I had a cut across my head. And of course, being competitive,
Right.
I jump up right away and grab my bike, and the guy comes by who I was trying to stay ahead of. He says, "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm totally fine."
Yeah, I meant to do that.
I always do that. So I trained for that. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, when I came home from my accident, my wife Karen, she likes to describe me as like sort of like bandaged up like a mummy. Like I did not have a limb that did not get wrapped from like ankle to hip or from wrist to shoulder or whatever. And
bad rash.
Yeah, it's just it's so much fun.
Yeah,
I wouldn't trade it for the world, but
the lesson is, as you get a little bit older now too.
Well, the lesson is don't ride crits, because those are like rugby on bikes, and just don't do that.
Yeah. As I get older, I know what I can't do, I don't.
In the 60s, don't ride a crit.
Yeah.
Okay. Just safe guideline.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to. So I have been mountain biking for a long time, but I just. Whew.
Yeah,
deadly.
Too many spills.
Yeah.
Too many spills. We can talk about like hundreds of endos on my mountain bikes.
Is that right?
Oh
man.
I used to race those too. So
yeah.
Unlike you, I'm completely not.
What were you racing?
I will only race anything, anytime, anybody, any vehicle.
What were you racing mountain biking? This will be
cross
shocking.
country. I was a cross country.
Like
guy.
what sort of events were you running?
I did Ziggy and Canmore a few times in the 90s. Did stuff like that.
Oh.
So
I was running the 24 Hours of Adrenaline at Canmore.
I did that in...
Dude, if you were at the same event...
2004, I did 24 hours. It was after I finished Ironman New Zealand, my first Ironman.
New Zealand.
So I did that in February, and then in the... I don't know, I think it's
July.
around the July long weekend is normally...
So I was running... Because my brother Jason, who of course.
I know Jason, yeah.
Yeah, like we were running the 24 Hours of Adrenaline solo event for years. And then on one year, I was the cover of their advertisement. So I was the advertisement. So
what year?
I think this was 2004.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, so I would have been there, like...
That's funny, right?
Triathlon guy who hadn't been on a mountain bike for about 10 years at that point in time, but obviously, had some fitness. I rode. I discovered that I shouldn't ride at night. Night riding was bad. I can't even drive at night, really. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
There's probably something genetically wrong with me that makes me incapable of processing things.
There's something fun about the 24 Hours of Adrenaline at night. It's a neat, and if I could pump up the event, but that's a great event. Like if you want to do something just kind of wild and out there, that's a cool event to be at.
There you go.
Yeah, I can't believe you were there.
I was there that year.
I was in that blue tent. You saw it.
Oh, that blue tent? Yeah.
I was in the blue tent.
No wonder I didn't see it.
Well, the weird thing is we probably were very close to each other at some point during the race.
Yeah, I would have looked. I would have looked a little different then. I would have looked a little more like sort of Yvonne Lendl and his in his camp days, very thin, shriveled.
Yeah, you know what? That's what got me out of cycling. Actually, was that I could just never lose enough weight, and I was losing to guys like my brother was. He probably was 20 pounds under me, and then the guys that would win were 20 pounds under him. Like they were coming in at 130, 140, and I'm hauling around 200 pounds of fat. So
when I was racing, I would race like between 170, 175 pounds, somewhere in there. And I was considered like freakishly huge.
That's like Clydesdale class in some
exactly.
races. So,
exactly, literally, and I'm 6'1" and a bit, so 170 pounds is not a lot of weight for somebody. But when
in the
somebody
biking
looks
world,
at you and you look like some sort of gargantuan freak, maybe I didn't choose the right sport. Although I dare those guys to try and stick with me on the flats.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I can't believe you were there.
Yeah.
Man, it just keeps going. Are you sure? What's your mother's first name? Oh, I'm kidding. We're not going. Well, anyways,
All right.
super great to have you. I know you got a busy day, and I probably should get to work too.
All right. It's
But
great fun
we'll
being
probably
here.
do this again and
Yeah.
figure out something else that we have in common. It's crazy.
Yeah, we'll probably figure out somewhere in the deep, dark secrets that we're somehow related. But
Yeah. That's bizarre.
it'll be there.
Yeah, well, super great to have you, Charles, and yeah, we'll talk again soon.
All right.
Best of luck with Jazz YYC. Maybe send me some links, and we'll pop those in the description of the
Excellent.
upcoming stuff. And yeah,
We have a new membership drive coming up, so
exciting.
That'll be good.
Yeah, let's pop that in the description. So,
All right,
awesome.
perfect.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank
All
you,
right,
sir.
Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye bye.